Ohio. Prague, the statute city and the capital of the Czech Republic, the administrative center of the Středočeský region in two of his areas. Prague East and Prague West. Forms an independent administrative and territorial unit of the country. Population 1.331 million people. 2021. The 14th in population city in the European Union countries. It is located on banks of the river of Vltava and 40 kilometers from her confluence with Laba. Main political, economic and cultural center of the Czech Republic. One of the largest tourist centers of Europe. The number of tourists in 2012 exceeded 5.4 million people. Since the 10th century, capital of the Czech state. In 1526-1918 the main town of Bohemia under the power Habsburgov. From 1918 to 1992 the capital of Czechoslovakia. Since 1993 the Czech Republic. The historic center is entered in the UNESCO World Cultural Heritage List. Etymology. Toponym of Prague connect. Threshold. With the Czech word pra, at the same time the river threshold, which within Prague a little is meant. The national etymology brings the name out of a legend of the Princess Libyusha who sent servants to the forest who found the person, to Savshi a house threshold, from here the name Prague there. Sometimes the origin of the name is connected with the word przení. Training, roasting. As in this region developed a lot of bread. History. The first historical data on settlements of Slavs in the territory of the modern city belong to the 6th century AD. In the 10th century Prague became the capital of the Czech state. At the end of the same century the market square was built. In the first half of the 13th century around stone constructions near the square began to put up fortifications. Prague competing in the Middle Ages on an equal basis with Paris for a rank of the capital of Europe, having appeared out of the first wave of globalization in the 16th century, I became her peripheral city. After defeat of Austria in Austro-Prussian War of 1866 when the city was occupied by Prussian troops, the Austrian command came to a conclusion that he finally lost the defensive value. It led to the decision on demolition of the most part of city strengthenings, first of all around a new place in the small country. Rapid development of suburbs of Prague was result of it. Krlovsk-Vinograd, Žižkov, Chylin, Vršovice, Nesl, Smíchov, Koshozy, Podolí, Vysočany and many others were, unlike densely built-up old quarters, there were tens and hundreds of the new plants and factories attracting labor from rural areas. In the 19th century the Prague agglomeration became the most important industrial center of all empire. A special role was played by the enterprises of mechanical engineering and metal working, using nearby located coal basin and the metallurgical enterprises of the city of Kladno. At the same time, being afraid of further strengthening of Prague and the Czech Republic in general and, as a result, requirements at a special political role, the Vienna government interfered with merge of suburbs to the city. Before falling of the monarchy in 1918 such permission was got only Josefov, by Vyšehrad, Kolšovice Bodny and Liban. Certain suburbs expanded so that the cities received the status, at the same time reaching the impressive sizes. For example, Krlovsk-Vinograd before World War I totaled about 100,000 inhabitants that brought them to the third place among all Czech and Moravian cities, after actually Prague and Brno. After disintegration and fall of 1918 of the Austro-Hungarian Empire and formation of the independent Czechoslovak Republic, Prague became her capital. The city existed rather quietly prior to World War II in 1939. It is exempted from the German troops on May 6, 1945 by participants of the Prague National Revolt. On May 9 the Soviet troops entered Prague, which is almost cleared of the German troops. Fortunately, war didn't leave in the city of serious destructions. In 1960 Prague became the capital of the Czechoslovak Socialist Republic, and that stayed till 1993 when, after the Velvet Divorce of Czechoslovak Federation, it became the capital of the Czech Republic. It was the main place of events of the Prague Spring of 1968, when an attempt of internal reforming of Kiev, her armed suppression by forces of the participating countries of the Warsaw Pact in August 1968, and then the center of the Velvet Revolution of 1989 was made. After formation in 1918 of the independent Czechoslovak state and declaration of Prague as his capital, already nothing interfered with her development as the mother country. In 1922, 37 cities and places surrounding her, so the population of the city grew almost 3 times to 677,000 inhabitants, and the territory with 21 km were attached to the city. I increased to 171. 5 km, having brought it thereby to the level of the large European capitals of the time. Rapid growth of Prague as a result of her central role in the country and further development of the industry, led to growth of the population up to 850,000 by 1930 and 1 million by 1939. These years also big development was undergone by transport infrastructure of the city. The tram network captured almost all her territory, the outskirts received bus traffic, construction of lines of the trolleybus began. The decision on construction in Prague of the subway was in the mid-30s made, however the begun works were interrupted in connection with the German occupation and World War II. On the periphery there were new residential areas as Vilovy building, Orshakov, Gansbolka, Woman, Bubenite, Zagrani Mesto, and multi-story buildings. Poleshevice, Davice, Vršovice, Strašnica, Podoli, etc. Differing in the improvement level, considerable for the time, and also kindergartens, schools, working hostels, recreation centers, sporting venues, for example, Stadium on Stragov. The Czech architects' the known creations in modernist style Cubism. The unique phenomenon in world architecture. And functionalism lifted city architecture to the most advanced level. The 1930th years are celebrated by explosive development of theatre and cinema life. Annexation of the Sudets, German occupation of the Czech Republic and its subsequent release. The American and Red Army led to the fact that Prague, in which through many centuries Czechs, Germans and Jews together lived, actually became the monotonic city. Many eminent political and cultural persons underwent repressions as from Nazi and communist regime and were executed, flung in prisons, or forced to emigrate. Two most Massachusetts waves of emigration are connected with the arrival of the Communist Party to the power in February 1948 and invasion of troops of member countries of the Warsaw Pact led by the USSR in August 1968. Military losses of the population led to the fact that pre-war number was restored only by 1960. Subsequently, territorial and demographic growth happened, mainly due to further accession of neighboring settlements in 1968 and 1974. As a result, the number of inhabitants at one time exceeded 1,200,000 people. In recent years, his reduction owing to resettlement of inhabitants from the dense central regions to suburban settlements is observed. During the post-war period, development of infrastructure and improvement continued. At the same time, the aspiration to the fastest solution of a housing problem, as well as in other socialist countries, led in 1950 the 1980 years to emergence on the outskirts of the city of affordable housing, inexpressive residential districts from the panel houses of the increased number of stories differing in the modest sizes of living space of apartments, low level of municipal conveniences and low operational profitability. At the same time, many valuable historical buildings in the downtown were deprived of attention and were exposed to slow degradation. Situation managed to be improved only recently when the majority of buildings found the owner. It is frequent in the person of successors of former owners. Many residential areas, including being in close proximity to the downtown. In particular, Žižkov, Karlin, Smíchov, Vinograda, were almost entirely reconstructed, and housing which is located in them acquired the prestigious status. In August 2002, Prague strongly suffered from a catastrophic flood of the Vltava River, as a result of which the considerable part of the city was flooded, and for several months the subway is put out of action. Prague was stretched along both banks of the river of Vltava. River extent within the city: 29.8 km, average depth of 2.75 m, the maximum 10.5 m. In all territory of Prague, the unique river Varanka, the left and flow. 5 streams on the left coast flows into Vltava, and 4, on right, along the left coast the She-Devil channel is located. The city is located on 5 hills. According to PIS, the Prague Information Service, on 9, divided by the river, on her 9 islands. Climate soft, moderately continental, winters rather soft, low snow, and summer usually rainy and warm. The spring comes in March, and the fall terminates at the beginning of December. Average air temperature in January is 1.4 C, in July of plus 18.2 C. The total average annual amount of precipitation makes about 500. The most rainy months from May to August, the driest, January and February. The city is rich with green plantings, they make slightly less than a half of the territory of the city. The total area of the territory of Prague and administrative borders of the city is 496.07 km. At the same time, only 48.71 km fall to the share of building. The main part is occupied, strangely enough, by the agricultural land minus 209.84 km. Including an arable land minus 154.30 km, orchards and garden sites minus 46.81 km, meadows minus 8.68 km. And even vineyards minus 0.10 km. Besides, within the city there are 49.20 km of the woods. Prague is subdivided into 22 administrative districts and 57 city parts. The main subject of local government. And their structure now. However, in terms of post, electoral, judicial and police administrative laws, it's still, since 1960, is divided into 10 city districts. For December 31, 2006, the number of residents was 1188. 1,000 people. Female population prevails. 52 women are the share of 48 men. In recent years, the population of Prague increased by 6.5 thousand people, including by 0.25 thousand due to natural increase, which for the first time since the end of the 1970th years was positive, and on 6.25 thousand due to migration, including from the Russian Federation. At the same time, the population of the city of the Czech nationality owing to migration decreased by 4.5 thousand people. The suburbanization phenomenon and persons of foreign origin increased by 10.75 thousand people. The maximum gain of number is noted among citizens of Ukraine. Slightly less than a half of all gain. Russia and Vietnam. As a result, the total number of foreign citizens, constantly or temporarily living in Prague, exceeded 100,000 people, including citizens of Ukraine about 35,000, Slovakia about 15,000, Russia about 10,000, Vietnam about 6,000 inhabitants. About 28% from foreign inhabitants have the permanent residence in the Czech Republic, the others are in the country on the basis of long-term visas. On age structure of 12. 3% of residents of Prague are in age of 0-15 years, 72.1% at the age of 15-65 years and 15.6% are more senior than 65 years. Nearly 900 inhabitants have aged more than 100 years. In structure of the population, up to 40 years men, after 45 years, women. For age group 80 years, double and more or more senior. Have small numerical prevalence. State language is Czech. In practically all population of the city owns, wide circulation is also had Slovak. The vast majority of Czechs understands him. German, Russian and English. Here it is still possible to hear Yiddish. The most part of believers, about 70%, professes Catholicism. According to a census of 2001, more than 67% of residents of Prague are atheists, and about another 8% couldn't answer the matter unambiguously. Economy. From industries in Prague are developed mechanical engineering, machine tool construction, transport, electrotechnical, etc. Chemical, textile, sewing, printing, food. In the city, the world's last operating system of city pneumatic mail, which appeared for the first time in 1887, remained, apparently. During a flood of 2002, several stations were damaged and the system ceased to work. The Czech mail is going to restore it and again to put into operation. Besides museum and historical value, such system has applied character. So, for example, the telegram or a small package from post office in the new city can be delivered to Prague Castle within 3-5 minutes. That's significantly quicker than any other type of transport, including courier service. The average monthly salary in 2007 was 35115 kroner in a business sector and 27385 kroner in not enterprise. Generally budgetary. The sector that also 385 kroner. 1.4%. Respectively are more than indicator of 2006 on 2416 kroner. 7.4%. Traditionally in the city, compensation is higher than on average in the Czech Republic and its certain regions. So, in the Central Czech Republic, the average salary in a business sector for 2007 was 25432 kroner. 72.4% of the Prague indicator. And kroner in not enterprise. 82.8%. Tourism. After the beginning of market reforms, tourism was the most fast-growing industry of the city. Literally for several years, Prague turned from the little-known city in scales of Europe into the real mecca of tourists. According to the World Tourist Organization, by 2005 it came to the 6th place in Europe on number of visits after London, Paris, Rome, Madrid and Berlin. It was promoted first of all by fast development of the hotel chain of the city, which increased several times. By the beginning of 2007 in him there were 29 5-star, 126 4-star and more than 250 3-star hotels, the number of places in which reaches 90,000, and also 4 hotels equipped in the passenger motor ships put at the mooring, several motels for motorists and huge number of boards, hostels, youth hostels, campings and the apartment hotels. According to the rating of world-famous tourist operator the TripAdvisor Traveler's Choice in 2006, 2 Prague hotels, Riverside Hotel and Hotel La Palais, are included in number of 10 most luxury hotels of the world. Now more than 110,000 residents of Prague. About 20% of economically active population. Work in the industries anyway connected with service of entrance and internal tourism. Total number of the tourists who visited the city exceeded 7.5 million people in 2018. At the same time, the average tourist spent 3.7 nights in hotels, that also exceeds the average European level a little. At the same time, it is noted that Prague far didn't exhaust the potential of the development, having all opportunities to attract much more guests in connection with holding cultural, sporting, social and political, economic, scientific and other international Massachusetts events. Transport. Prague is also important not of the international motor transport. In it, Prague, Brno highways. Bratislava, Ostrava, Katowice, Warsaw, Prague, Pilsen, Nuremberg, Prague, Ústí nad Labem, Dresden, Berlin, and Prague, Hradec Králové. Her continuation to Szczecin and Olomouc is planned further, and also several high-speed motorways meet. Now construction of the Prague highway, Česk-Budějovice, is conducted. Linz. At the same time, the lack of the full-fledged circuitous route around the city in the conditions of repeatedly increased international transit road haulage leads to the raised load of intracity communications, environmental pollution and transport traffic jams. Input in a system of the ring highway on all her extent in view of a difficult relief in the neighborhood of Prague. Need for a construction of several tunnels with a total length more than 6 km. And to the disputes connected with land tenure was planned for term not earlier than 2013. City transport of Prague includes the system of the subway, trams, trolleybuses and buses. The subway consists of 61 stations and 3 lines with a total length of 59.3 km distinguished by letters and color. Vrínant. The depot of Kostovar station. The Motel Hospital station. Yellowin. The Blackty Bridge station. The Zličin station. Redwood. The station of Letňana. The Gate station. Now in a stage of preparation, there is a project of construction of the fourth line connecting the main station to the southern areas of Lebuš and Písnice. The city has the developed network of tram lines with a total length of 136 km. After several decades of stagnation, when voices for complete elimination of the tram in the Czech capital were distributed, recently situation changes for the better. New modern lines of the high-speed tram to the areas of Mařany and Barrandov are built. There are plans of his return to Wenceslas Square and further expansion of network in new areas. The tram network covers the most part of the city, many routes the diametrical, connecting opposite outskirts through the center. There are tram and bus routes which work only at night and connect the center to the outskirts, covering practically all city. In total in the city for February 1, 2014, including night, there are 32 tram routes, 200 bus and 3 lines of the subway, at which 971 trams, 1300 buses and 202 cars of the subway work. In addition, in the city there is a funicular lifting tourists on the Petroshinsky Hill, and 6 ferries through Vltava. Besides, the system of the integrated public transport included the sites of the suburban railroads in the city, allowing to use uniform travel documents. The development plan for Prague provided transformation of quite developed railway system into the integral system of city rail transport like the Berlin S-Bahn, with construction of new stations and stopping points. Payment of travel by city transport preliminary. The main basic coupon for 40 kroner transfer. From the moment of composting operates within 90 minutes day and night on all types of city transport. In the subway, the tram, the bus, the funicular, on the ferry. Capital Transport Enterprise. And in local passenger trains of lines S within the city. Tariff P and zero belts. There is a coupon limited. For short trips. For 30 kroner, also transfer. From the moment of composting 30 minutes work. There are coupons operating 1 days, 24 hours, and 3 days. Free pass is provided for children up to 6 years and pensioners after 70 years. Children's tariff from 6 to 15 years. Half of cost of the adult. At observance of special conditions of transport enterprise. The paper or electronic personalized travel document is more detailed on the website of DPP. Children up to 15 years and pensioners or more senior 65 there can go free of charge, and pensioners from 60 to 65 years for a half of a tariff. At an entrance to the vehicle or before the subway escalator. Or at the station if the beginning of a trip by train. It is necessary to punch the coupon in the yellow device. Only once at the first entrance. Turnstiles in the subway are absent. Control is exercised in stations and in trains. Constant passengers can use monthly, quarter and annual travel documents. According to a research of carrier of DPP providing functioning of public transport in Prague, on average in November 2008 the Prague subway transported 1,198,579 passengers a day. The most loaded line was Line C, which served in day of 518,291 passengers. The B and A lines served respectively 404,256 and 276,032 passengers a day. From stations the most loaded there was in 1. B. Vlova station of Line C, on which the average passenger turnover in November made. Further, there is a station of the Adavika line, with 117,726 passengers a day. The smallest passenger turnover was recorded at the Kolbanova station of Line B, on average 51,38 passengers a day. Long-distance and international bus flights in Prague go not to one bus station, and are distributed on several bus stations. Central Station of Florence, Station Prague Bolshavici, Prague-Chorny Bridge, Prague's Lichin and two others. In the past, 1936-1972. Prague had network of trolleybus lines with 11 routes. However, in the process of construction of the subway and development of automobilization in the conditions of low petrol prices, their preservation was recognized as inexpedient. The projects of her restoration, which were repeatedly offered recently, didn't find a positive response of a management of the city yet. However, in 2017 in the city began the first test steps on restoration of the trolleybus movement. The walking water transport is developed. Here River Moscow, trams of the Soviet production, River Beefer 3 trams of the East German production, and various historical vessels, including steamships, are used. Now the increasing value buys the motor transport, including personal automobile. Prague became the first city in Eastern Europe which exceeded the level of 500 cars on 1,000 people of the population. It led to considerable load of a road and street network of the city and to long jams and traffic jams on the main communications. Situation is supposed to be improved by means of a total ban on entrance of the individual transport to the historic center of the city, collection of a payment for entrance to the central regions, further development and increase in comfort of public transport with the device of available accumulative parking at the major transport hubs and metro stations, and also construction of intracity and external transport rings. In Prague, the modern airport of Václav Havel works in the area Prague-6. In a day about 630 planes from Europe, Asia, Africa and North America land. The passenger turnover of the airport in 2017 exceeded 15 million people. In 2007 at a ceremony of World Airport Awards, the airport Ruzin was recognized by the best airport of Central and Eastern Europe. The decision on construction of the passenger terminal of the airport of Vodokoda in 15 came to the north from the center of Prague is made. The main trains going to Prague arrive to the main railway station, which is also called by the station of the President Wilson, being in the downtown. On border between districts Prague 1 and Prague. It was opened in December 1871. The historical building with a dome is built in 1909 by the architect Josef Fonta in modernist style. Then also Dokonevny steel arch overlapping of platforms, the first in lands kingdoms of Czech, is built. Modern station rooms with ticket offices, waiting rooms and trade institutions are connected to an entrance on the metro station of the same name and are under street level. Were under construction from 1972 to 1979, reconstruction took place from 2006 to 2012. Till 1919 the station was called Franz Joseph Ice Station. Then till February 15, 1940, and from 1948 to 1953 the station bore a name of Thomas Woodrow Wilson. In 1990 is updated, in honor of the United States President insisting on creation of independent Czechoslovakia. During the period since 1940 on 1948 and from 1953 to 1990 I was called the main station. Also in Prague the station of Masaryk, built in 1844 on the project of the architect Antonin Englinga and serving generally local rail transportation works. The northern direction serves the transit station in Goleshovice and western in Smíchov. Education. As of the beginning 2005-2006 academic years in Prague there were 302 kindergartens, including 12 private, 215 basic schools with the 9-year program of training, including 10 private, 137 special schools, generally for pupils with these or those violations of health, 35 musical and art schools, 60 gymnasiums, including 25 private, 95 high technical schools, an analog of technical school, including 46 private, 50 high special schools, on non-technical specialties. From them 20 private and 36 higher special schools, as a rule, with a 3-year course giving incomplete higher education. Corresponds to the bachelor's level, including 22 private. In the Czech Republic it is possible to come to a gymnasium after 5, 7 or 9 classes of comprehensive school. Respectively, training will last 8, 6 or 4 years. This type of educational institution specializes in preparation for entering higher education institutions, and it is considered the most prestigious type of secondary education. The city is the recognized center of the higher education of the Czech Republic and Eastern Europe. Now and there are 8 higher educational institutions financed from the state budget. Karlov University is founded in 1348, the oldest university, to the north from the Alps and to the east from Rhine, 49,000 students and graduate students. The Czech Technical University is founded in 1707, the first highest civil technical educational institution in the world, 23. 5,000 students and graduate students. The Higher School of Economics is founded in 1919, 16,000 students and graduate students. The Czech Agrotechnical University is founded in 1952, 14.5 thousand students and graduate students. The Higher Chemical and Technological School is founded in 1923. 9,000 students and graduate students. The Academy of Musical Art, besides actually musical faculty, AMU, trains experts in the field of cinema and television, FOMU, and also theater, DAMU. It is founded in 1945, 2,000 students and graduate students. The Higher School of Applied Art is founded in 1885, training in specialties architecture, applied art and design, 450 students and graduate students. The Academy of the Fine Arts is founded in 1799, 250 students and graduate students. Besides, in Prague there are 21 higher educational institutions belonging to the private companies or funds which generally train experts in the field of commerce, management and law. The largest of them are the University at Kamensky, the Higher School of Finance and an Administrative Case and Institute of Banking. Altogether train more than 3,000 students. Total number of students at the universities and the higher schools is more than 130,000 people, or nearly 12% of her population. Sport. Annually in Prague, the set of sports competitions is held. It is possible to distinguish the Prague Marathon and the Prague Semi-Marathon from them. In the city football clubs, Victoria, Dukla, Bohemians, Slavia and Sparta, and hockey clubs of the Czech Extraliga Sparta and Slavia are based. In 1920-1930 in Prague it was constructed the world's largest, 202,310 m, the Universal Strigovsky Stadium with stands on more than 200,000 places used for holding in the beginning meetings of the Czech Sports and Patriotic Society, Sokol, and then sports contests. Only capacity, only the stadium for carrying out an auto racing in the American Indianapolis can compete to him. In 1932 on the island of Shitvanica, the Europe's first stadium with artificial ice, the venue of 4 World Ice Hockey Championships with a washer is constructed. Culture. Prague is the traditional European cultural center, the venue of many known actions of world value. International musical festivals, Prague Spring and Tworzykovsky Prague, Prague Proms, Prague Literary Forum, International Festival of Documentary Cinema about Human Rights, One World, Prague Festival of Experimental Art, World Festival of the Gypsy Art, International Competition Festival of Creativity for Children and Young People, Magic Stars of Prague, and others. National Theatre. The National Theatre, the Concert Hall and Rudolfinum Gallery. The residence of the Czech Philharmonic Orchestra. The Public House, the State Opera of Prague. Since 2011 a part of National Theatre. Laternové Magic Theatre, Spiegel and Gervinix Theatre, the National Museum, the National Technical Museum, the Museum of Naprostek. The Museum of Asian, African and American Art. A Country House of Bertram. W.A. Mozart's House Museum. National Gallery treat the most known centers of the Prague cultural life. In total in the city there are 86 public libraries, 84 theaters with a constant scene, 34 movie theaters, 74 museums, 160 art galleries and a set of concert halls and musical clubs. In recent years the capital, as well as the Czech Republic in general, gained popularity as the place of shootings of many movies of the American and European film directors thanks to the developed motion picture industry. The known film studio Barrandov. Unique medieval architecture which is often used as the city coolest, to rather low prices and preferential tax treatment. In Prague there lived the Rabbi Yehuda Lev ben Betzalel Makarel, who, on a legend, created the most famous golem. According to the legend, the golem was created on the bank of Vltava from 4 elements. Remains of the golem still lie on the attic of the old new synagogue, the oldest in Europe operating and until now. In her the chair on which the rabbi sat during prayers is kept in inviolability. During the excursions guides tell the Renaissance parable about the golem which was developed in Karel Čapek and Gustav Mehring's works. Architecture. Prague many experts and tourists is recognized as one of the most beautiful cities of Europe. Among the main attractions of Prague of 18 stone and steel bridges connecting coast of Vltava. One of the most known, Karlov Bridge, work of medieval architecture. A masterpiece of the European Gothic architecture is the Cathedral of St. Vitus, which construction was conducted nearly 600 years. The city is famous for the fountains. 5 central historic districts in 1993 were included in a number of UNESCO World Heritage Sites as the Architectural and Historical Reserve. Today Prague consists of areas which long time were considered as the certain cities. Stare Mesto, Novo Mesto, Gradkana, Malostrana, Vyšehrad. In the past they not only had various status, the system of submission, management, finance, but often and were at enmity among themselves, sometimes reaching the real military operations. The first attempt of association of the Prague cities belongs to 1518 when citizens of the old place united with the new place. In 1523 this event was confirmed with the royal decree of Ludovic Jagellabí. However, already 10 years later, after election as the Czech king of Ferdinand Habsburg, contradictions between citizens concerning his policy led to their repeated separation. Finally it was succeeded to unite the certain cities in the territory of Prague only in 1784 during government of the Emperor Joseph II, the famous reformer. The history of Prague till 1784 is story of each of these cities, her quarters today. Prague Castle. At the end of the 9th century the first Christian prince Bořivoje I from the sword Přemysloviči founded the princely ancient settlement which then became the main place of stay of governors of this dynasty here. The residence of the bishop was placed in Prague Castle since 973. In the 12th centuries there were present fortifications with towers as a result of the general reorganization of the Hale by Soběslav I. In 1158 Prague Castle turned into the center of the Czech state. The highest blossoming of Prague Castle belongs to the 14th century when at the time of Charles IV's government the city became the residence of the Emperor of the Sacred Roman Empire. Was in Charles IV's plans to turn Prague into the large European center. According to it, large-scale construction works were developed here. In 1382 Wenceslaus IV, the successor of Crown Karl's son, transferred the royal residence to the old city. However, together with Vladislav Jagiellonský the Yard returned to Prague Castle in 1484, he began reorganization of the Hale in style of late Gothic. In 1526 Habsburgi, which turned the city in style of the Renaissance, entered on the Czech throne. In 1541, as a result of heavy fire on the Hale, there were 3 areas for new buildings which were conducted especially intensively in the period of Rudolf II Habsburg's government. 1576-1611. In 1620 the anti-Habsburg class revolt came to the end with defeat at the White Mountain. The Czech Republic lost the state independence and the imperial yard Habsburgov moved to Vienna. In 1753-1775, in the period of Maria II Theresa's government, large construction works in Prague Castle were carried out again. Buildings and palaces gained lines of Rococo and Neoclassicism. Throughout the next 1.5 centuries, retired and aged autocrats of the Austrian Empire found a shelter here. In 1918 Prague Castle became the place of stay of the head of the new state of the Czechoslovak Republic, and since January 1, 1993, the residence of the President of the Czech Republic. The old city is located on the right coast of Vltava. He grew up from small settlements which arose at the important intersection of tradeways between the west and the east and along the coast of Vltava in the 10th century. At the King Wenceslaus I, who in 1232-1234 built powerful fortifications, the old city acquired the city rights. The Czech kings transferred the residence here in the 15th century. The Jewish quarter grew in the old city in the middle of the 13th century. Jews lived separately from the Christian population, therefore they couldn't participate in political life of the city, besides often were exposed to riots. It finally got on the Czech earth the civil and political driver's license only in 1848 and 1850. The Prague ghetto became one of the quarters of Prague. He was given the name Josef in honor of the Austrian Emperor Joseph II, who issued the first decrees on equalizing of Jews in the rights with local population. After 1893, the part of medieval quarters of the old city was demolished and territories are built up anew. During clearing of slums on a change of the 19th-20th centuries, the majority of the old construction standing here was born, and on their place multi-storied houses are constructed. The country is small. On the same coast of Vltava as Gradkana, there is a small party. In 9th-10th centuries on these lands there was a trade settlement. The King Gold and Iron Premisal Ottokar II in 1257 decided to found the city here. The territory chosen by him was enclosed with a fortification and is populated with the German colonists. In 1362 Charles IV erected a new fortification and in a small party, at the same time with building of defensive strengthenings in Gradkana. The main part of Gothic building of the city was destroyed in 1419 during a Hussite revolt. The fire of 1541 destroyed what was managed to be restored by then. In the 17th-18th centuries the Baroque era contributed. Almost all palaces which remained hitherto, monasteries, temples have an appearance of Baroque buildings. Adjoined to Prague Castle and originally represented nothing, the protected settlement of citizens of the Hale approximately till 1320. Then they received the status of the city and were enclosed with a fortification. In 1362 in connection with increase in the square of settlements, the Emperor Charles IV constructed a new number of defensive works. At the beginning of the 15th century, during wars of the Age of Reformation, the city strongly suffered from battles of Hussites with royal garrison of Prague Castle. The strongest fire destroyed the constructions restored to the end of the century in 1541. Then Gradkana were built up almost anew. During this era the Renaissance, therefore the architecture was defined by this style dominated. Were brought to the level of the royal city in 1598. Buildings were reconstructed in Baroque style in which they reached our days. In 1348 in the neighborhood with the old city the Emperor Charles IV founded the new city, the newest part of Prague. The ancient settlements and new constructions existing here were captured by a ring of strengthenings. It became the Europe's first city built on a previously developed plan. He allowed merchants and also handicraftsmen and small traders that was reflected in names of streets and squares. Shitnaya, Barley, Myasnitsky, the Haymarket and the street, the Skatopragani Market, now Karlov Square, the Horse Market, modern Wenceslas Square. Soon it became the biggest of the Prague cities. The new city was a part of Prague in 1784. The majority of residential quarters of old building was born at the end of the 19th century. The most valuable architectural and historical monuments are restored or reconstructed. The arisen original modern buildings kept the nature of initial planning. Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.